It's time for our next session, and it's a continuation of the theme that we were discussing earlier in the morning, which is AI deployment scenarios for telcos. Where are telcos deploying AI? Where do they plan to deploy it? What are some of the use cases? So we are going to meet our panel. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, starting from the far end with Vess.
Hello, everyone. Vess Bakalov. I am a CTO for software networking at IBM.
Okay, thank you, Graeme.
Graeme Oxby, CEO of Community Fibre, a fibre altnet in London.
Everyone, I'm Manish Singh, CTO of Telco Systems Business at Dell.
Hi, my name is Rajwinder, and I'm Strategic Product Manager for OSS BSS AA in Ericsson.
My name is Voudouris. I'm a CTO for a UK altnet called Airband.
Okay, thanks everybody. As with the session earlier, we've offered our panelists the opportunity to give a brief presentation. So we'll hear these first, and then we'll offer up to questions from the audience. We're going to go in alphabetical order. So we can start with Vess. Vess, you can do it from your seat, or you can come up here. Completely up to you.
Hello, everybody. So no slides, but I do want to make a few remarks just to set things going. Well, look, AI in telcos is a big topic, right? Because there's so many ways to approach the adoption of AIs within a complex enterprise like telcos, starting from obviously optimizing operations, optimizing deployment, cost analysis, to all the way to customer experience, right? So these are all very different ways to think about AI, different ways to put AI in production within your environments, and they require different skill sets. And maybe the one theme that I'm going to keep harping back on as we go through the panel today, and I'm so much looking forward to hearing everybody else's thoughts about this, is justifying the cost within the enterprise, combined with the kind of skills that are necessary within an enterprise to deploy telcos efficiently. And I'm going to challenge you all. I'm going to say that telcos, by their very nature, by the fact that they're providing this very complex offering, right, that relies on huge amounts of investment in equipment and skills, very unique sort of blend of capabilities, are very much used to building things on their own. And I think AI is one area where they should not do that. I think that this requires such a radical departure from what telcos are really good at, that they really need to think about it differently, almost the way they think about maybe building their RAN, right? You're not going out necessarily and inventing the new radio technologies that power your RAN. Rather, you work with vendors who are extremely good at it, that integrate across it and deliver that capability across a good number of other customers like yourselves. Essentially, if you think about what it takes to run an AI model, right? We start with the hardware. So if we're to build it ourselves, we need to go out and give NVIDIA a big fat check and get a lot of H100s or maybe Intel. I don't want to discount you guys, and get the chipsets and get them ready and deploy them. But now we are engaged in a 2-year process, I'm being very optimistic, to train those models, right? And during that time, that hardware is getting amortized. That hardware is not being used to actually generate any money for you while you're training those models, getting them ready. So by the time you're ready to deploy your model, you need a hardware refresh, or you're very close to needing a hardware refresh. And that's really expensive now. Then you need to think about developing those models. The regulatory hurdles, especially when it comes to a telco, are huge. Getting data, enough data to train those models, it could be a showstopper oftentimes. Then you need to customize those models. You need the skill set, the engineers, who again may not be fully utilized within your environment alone. Then you need to prevent model drift, because your MOPs are going to change, your vendors are going to change, you're going to have different ways of doing things, and that drift in its own is a continuous operating cost that you need to endure. And then finally, you need to get a tool set that is AI aware, that can feed data to the AIs, but also can be controlled by the AIs. And that entire process that I just described, and I was very, very high level, is both complex, expensive, requires expertise, and requires capabilities that need to be thought about not as a science project, as we currently are doing very often. We're like, oh, look at this cool thing. I can resolve 50 tickets. What about the 500,000 behind those, right? We need to be able to go to our CTO, justify a business case that's comprehensive, going from top to bottom, or rather from bottom to top, maybe in this case, and ask for that $10, $20 million check. But to do this, we also have to show them we have the capabilities to execute, and that this science project is not going to come to naught. So in this particular case, I think thinking about how to partner with vertically integrated vendors is going to be a very smart move, coming from both hardware capabilities, software capabilities, operating capabilities. And ultimately, that could result in a transfer back to the telco. But to get your my challenge to you, right, is thinking about, can you do this on your own, or should you think about partnering up and coming there? So.
Okay, great. Thanks, Vess. Just before you sit down, can you just tell us very briefly how you arrived at IBM, where you came from, just to give a sense of where you've come from and your background?
Sure. So I'm a little bit of an unusual IBMer, although I do wear my blue colors proudly. So I have been, actually until 6 months ago, I have been an entrepreneur for the past 20 years. So I created Sev1, which was a monitoring platform that many of you guys actually use. And then later on, after I left that business, I started a company called Pliant, which does end-to-end API-driven automation. So now I'm joining IBM, and actually my department happens to have both of those companies under the roof. Sev1 arrived separately from me. I wasn't there when IBM acquired it. But so it's a little bit of a different view, a little bit more maybe of an entrepreneurial view at the world than you're used to hearing from the general IBMer. But nonetheless, I think that there is a lot for us to talk about.
Thank you very much, Vess. Next, we have Graeme from Community Fibre. I think you're just going to say a few words from your seat.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, we're an alternative fibre provider, biggest alternative in London, covering 1.3 million homes, and quite a lot of take-up, so customers are joining the network, 340,000. We're super excited, actually, by the deployment of AI. We think it's a fantastic opportunity to improve many aspects of how we run the business. Not in a sort of heroic, transformational sort of perspective, and I completely disagree with the approach, by the way. I wouldn't touch that approach with a barge pole. Because we think there are ways of improving the productivity of our employees, all employees in the business, so we can liberate them from the boring tasks that we currently make them endure, and they can be spending their time doing much more interesting things, and we've seen that already in the way that we deploy simple productivity tools in places like marketing, where our customer base has grown by 3 or 4 times, and our marketing team is the same size, because they're not wasting time doing endless edits of copy, they're not creating stuff from scratch and all that kind of stuff. It just means their jobs are more interesting, and that's super powerful. Second area, I think we can deliver much better human interactions. We know that customers want to call us about stuff. Not everybody, but those that do, we can deliver much more consistent experiences. We can improve our right first time delivery, and we've deployed some tools that have allowed us to do that. It's a massive improvement in right first time, which is great for us, great for the customer. Obviously, they didn't only call us once, and it costs us a lot less money to deliver. So the business case is really strong. And maybe the most interesting is where we can move to proactive customer engagement, not reactive customer engagement. And we think that is a combination that works both at the network level, of identifying which of the many alerts that are created in a network actually impact the customer, and when, and how can we see those and get to the customer first. And when we have contacted customers proactively about a problem they didn't know they had, they absolutely love it. And it saves us a fortune, because it means they don't ultimately call us. And as interestingly, I think, is how do you use AI in the sales and marketing environment, where you enhance the conversation you have with the customer who calls you. We can't tell when someone contacts us what they are. We know where they live. We don't know what sort of person they are. We don't know what their utilisation is. We have simple ways of saying how many rooms have you got, how many children have you got, what do you do, gaming or video calls. It's frankly not enough. Whereas if I layer in different data sets, like stuff from estate agents, for example, and also how many customers next to them have got our service, I have a much more informed conversation that eliminates the inevitable human bias that you get when you pick up the phone and you hear a voice. And we think that is very, very powerful in terms of optimising our sales and marketing. So we are super excited. It's transformational across the business. We are not going to give it to big outsourcers. We think that we know what problems we want to solve, and so we will work with individual partners with the right sort of tool sets that will allow us to get done what we need to be done. Now that might be because we're a relatively small telco and haven't got billions of pounds to spend on big infrastructure, but that's the way we do it.
Okay, thanks, Graeme. I mean, it is a case of horses for courses, isn't it? So do what makes sense for you. Okay, Manish, you're up next. Do you want to come to the podium or no? Okay.
Let me just start with and share with you a little bit about what, first of all, we are doing in the space of AI. And then I will share with you our thoughts on how we're seeing the telco space evolving and adopting AI and more. So where Dell sits, very obviously, our primary role is to bring in the infrastructure. And while over the years we've been doing a lot of cloud native infrastructure, last few years we've obviously extended the product offerings more around AI native platforms, right? So, and where we sit in the ecosystem, we work obviously a lot with the silicon partners. We heard earlier from Intel, NVIDIA, AMD, you name it, work with that silicon ecosystem, but then also work with a lot of the model community, the open source community, bringing in all the different kind of models. And again, looking from that infrastructure layer perspective, because it's not just about the CPUs or the GPUs. We need to look at it holistically from an architecture standpoint. You have the right networking, the right storage, et cetera, to deliver the kind of performance requirements that AI needs and has. So a lot of our focus, first of all, has been in that domain. Now, when we think about the world of AI and how that intersects with the telcos, I'll break this down into the what, the how, and where we do this. So, first of all, starting with the what, right? I mean, how and AI and the world of telco intersects. Think about that as AI in the network, and there's going to be AI on the network. And in that context, there are three key pillars where we already are seeing telcos moving and starting to build use cases and solutions for the markets. The first one, and before I even go in there, I'll say this is a technology that we're talking about that is moving rapidly at a very rapid pace. It does bring capabilities that clearly we haven't seen in the previous generations. And I will say this, no two telcos are equal. So when I share with you where we see this, keep in mind that not all markets are equal, not all telcos are equal. They all will have different strategies of how they want to adopt this technology and what they want to do. The three pillars I want to come back to, first and foremost, in certain markets, I would say especially Asia, in particular, but parts of Europe as well, we see the rise of sovereign AI. And in certain of those markets, we see the telcos bringing in capabilities and infrastructure along with local languages, context, culture, and more to start to offer in sovereign AI capabilities. Keep in mind, we're talking about AI, comes with data. Data has privacy, security, and sovereignty issues around it. And so we definitely are seeing that. lot more in Asia, I would say Korea, Japan, Indonesia, Singapore, on and on. A number of telcos who already are building, call these AI infrastructure with local languages. The second pillar I would go to is customer support, customer service, OSS, BSS, what has traditionally been known. This is the first domino we already are seeing falling. Number of telcos already getting initiated on that customer support, customer experience side of things, especially with LLM, brings in such extensive capabilities to really move past the world of those chatbots towards chat agents and really, really dramatically improve that customer engagement. And do sentiment analysis, do churn prediction, do dynamic offers, etc. And I'll just give you one case in point, work we've been doing, for example, with SK Telecom, where we've been working with a chat agent with a telco-specific LLM, and the results of that, we've published that under TM Forum, are remarkable in terms of what the technology starts to enable you. So an interesting proof point, and there are other customers we're working with in that OSS, BSS, customer support, customer service pillar, and more. And the third one I'll bring to is the networks itself, which is where I think we heard some of it, from energy efficiency to life cycle automation, to getting more towards autonomous networks. There are a number of use cases that are already that telcos are getting initiated on in that pillar. And to give you some examples, think network troubleshooting at scale. Think fault prediction with high accuracy at scale, 92% accuracy in terms of network fault prediction. That, to me, if you're a CNO, that's a game changer of what you can do in terms of your planning, in terms of your resource deployments, in terms of your network KPIs, et cetera, and we're seeing early parts of those results. Keep in mind, we are just at the start of this technology S-curve. So there is a whole lot of room here to improve, and the pace at which these things are improving is just remarkable. So broad suite of use cases in that network pillar. And the last thing I'll say is this, and I'll stop at that, is how do we do this? And that's very important. And in that regard, we work with a construct, what we call as the Dell AI Factory. The construct is very simple. Think of a factory floor, raw material in, finished goods out. In case of an AI factory, your raw material is data. And this is why we need to think a lot about how do we break the data silos, because good data in presence of other good data becomes great data, and that becomes very, very important. The more great data we can bring into this AI factory, the greater finished goods we are going to get. What are these finished goods? Use cases, productivity gains, business outcomes, et cetera, et cetera. And what sits inside the factory floor, think of a 3-layer cake. You've got the infrastructure, you've got the models, and you've got the agents of the agentic frameworks, which I know Ray doesn't like to talk about, but you bring all of these pieces together and you start to see those business outcomes and use cases. I'm going to stop at that. Thank you very much.
No. Thank you. No, absolutely love agents. Agentic, no. Not comfortable with that word. Okay, Raj, if you want to come up next, and I think you're going to come and take the podium.
I have slides. So as I introduced myself, my name is Rajwinder, and I'm Strategic Product Manager in Ericsson in an area called OSS BSS, as Manish has referred to us already. We did a survey of telco executives who manage OSS BSS with Omdia. And, we are saying a lot of things here, different perspectives. What we gathered from that survey is that around 27% of our telco OSS BSS stakeholders, they say that they are using AI quite aggressively across the board in OSS BSS. Now I'm talking about OSS BSS here, right? And there are another approximately 40%. They are saying they are using AI, but it's not across OSS BSS. It's more like in particular systems, So we feel that AI is already being extensively used in OSS BSS systems. Then when it comes to business outcomes, so what exactly are the business outcomes we are talking about? What's their expectations when they want to use AI in OSS BSS? So customer experience, as per 82% of OSS BSS stakeholders that responded. 82% said that customer experience is the most at the topmost business outcome they expect AI to meet. The second one was revenue enhancement, and the third one was business process automation. You call it agentic AI, agents, virtual assistant, intelligent assistant, chatbots, co-pilots, whatever we call, but their aspiration is that AI should improve the customer experience. And then when we were talking about from where exactly do they expect these AI capabilities to be coming, specifically in OSS BSS area, I know, Ray, you had a survey as well on that, a data point. 38% of our vendors, respondents, they expect these capabilities to come as part of the OSS BSS systems itself, talking about horizontal, vertical capabilities that we have this report on Ericsson.com. So where are we in Ericsson when it comes to this? And I again represent only OSS BSS side of the things. Ericsson is a big company. We have RAN and we have a business area network. So as Manish was rightly pointing, the cake analogy, and that's a good one. So what we feel is that our expertise in Ericsson, is more on our own systems. We know the data, we know the data catalogs, we know the metadata of our systems, and that's where we are leveraging on, So we are bringing around, we already have around 20 use cases. We call them AI use cases, but they are like capabilities which are add-on our products. Now, these capabilities, we club them into two categories. They are either feature enhancers, like, for example, intelligent anomaly detection for billing system. It uses VAE autoencoders, to find out anomalies into the invoices, which we give it as a feature with our Ericsson billing systems, And then the second category is more observability enhancers. Now, all these OSS BSS systems, we feel they're quite complex, as Manish also pointed about customer support. We feel that, AI and Gen AI has an important role to play when we are talking about ease of observability for our own systems, so OSS BSS system. So this is where we are. And of course, now we have started using generative AI. You see some product information assistant, guided selling, and product configuration assistant type of use cases. These are the use cases which we are using, where we are using generative AI technologies, right? So under the hood, I'll just give you a quick glimpse. Again, this is just for the LLM ops and RAG ops type of capabilities. So we have our own Gen AI framework where we use some LLM and even SLM, by the way, inference from big vendors who have expertise on this. Yesterday only AWS has announced Nova. And we also partner with the LLM vendors like Mistral. We also do a lot of partnership with OpenAI as well as with NVIDIA and other, where the expertise lies, So that's why we feel that foundation models is something which, we can use. We don't have to build them. We have to use foundation models. And I think that strategy is even important for telcos, let's leverage what others are building, and then you can follow the RAG approach or agent approach, whichever approach you want to see. Now, where exactly Ericsson's and Nokia's and, Amdocs and other telco vendors, they have expertise on? We have expertise on our metadata. We have expertise on our proprietary knowledge. We have expertise on the data that resides in our systems, So I'll just give you a small example. We've been developing a network insights assistant for one of the tier ones in North America. So my team has spent a lot of effort just to put the schema that we have for our, analytics system into a knowledge base, which can be used now. So I'm just imagining those type of the use cases where, telcos can easily leverage the work which product vendors are doing. So all in all, what I'm saying is that, I think in this area, we need to work as partners, So speaking about partnership, these are some of the use cases which, I can definitely give you more insights on. They expand across different areas. Like someone was saying, intent-driven service management, autonomous networks. So we are working on all of them. But thanks a lot.
Thanks very much. Okay, a lot of work going on there in the OSS BSS space. Chris, thank you.
Ray. Well, my topic is going to be agents, so either you like it or hate it, I don't know. So let's bring up the slides. I have 2 or 3 slides. I mean, my background first, I'm a CTO in one of the UK altnets, it's called Airband. My background is very long in telecoms, and I wear a second hat because I've done a lot of R&D in the area of agents and AI. So over the summer, we attended the TM Forum event, and we thought, let's put something provocative for that event. And we chose agents. We didn't know what's going to happen over the summer with all these big announcements, etc. So the slides are a bit of a few months back, but give you a bit of flavor, right? Even back in June, there was a lot of hype around agents, right? And that has increased. You saw announcements from Salesforce, from Microsoft, all going after this topic. So the question is why they're doing it now, right? What's happening in the market? And that's the hype. What's the truth behind it? If you look at it, we're going into a transition, right? If you look at digital business, this digital transformation, all of this era is coming a bit to an end. So we're moving more into what I call AI-dominated themes around AI business, looking at sort of LLM, generative AI. And it's been a long journey for telecoms, right? Who remembers the ERP, CRM, and then we had e-business, and then into digital transformation. And these journeys, let's be frank, they never complete, right? We never completed digital transformation. So we're going now to the next one, which is the AI theme, and probably it's going to run for the next 5, probably 10 years. Some people thought it's going to be metaverse. You remember the metaverse? I think this is still coming, but it's going to be probably another 5 to 10 years out, right? So let's look at sort of how the things are playing, and we put this sort of if you like, model. And some of it relates back to this autonomics of systems, autonomous vehicles. So I have different levels of autonomy in systems, which is the top sort of the figure. But also you have like, where does this happening? Where's the change with AI is happening? And I think it starts from the process layer. And we had process automation for years, right? People remember BPM and business process management. And then we got RPA. So moved the level up with task execution. And for those that know RPA in detail, some of it is image recognition. So RPA has the seeds of AI in it. And then with machine learning, we move the layer up, decision making. Now you can have machine learning, you can learn things, you can make decisions. I think what's coming next is agents, and that's going to give you the goal setting, right? So you don't bother finding out yourself. You give an instruction to an agent, which is like a task taker. I say, go do this for me. And the agent does it. And that's a big shift, right? Remember all the applications? Maybe users in 3, 4, 5 years' time, they don't need to do that themselves. They just task an agent to go find things for them, task an agent to go create a marketing campaign or a PowerPoint set of slides or finding, what's happening with inventory. So that's the big change. And it's moving also from left to right, right? So autonomic is going to happen more and more in autonomous decisions, but not immediately. This is gradual. It will take a few years. So what are the technologies coming to underpin that sort of change? And we started with business process management, now well embedded within organization. Then for a number of years, we had this thing around robotic process automation, right? And I think it was there, but it was not so flexible. I think now we have a new flavor of it with generative AI, LLMs, so it's going to get lots more flexible. And then we have the data and analytics. All of this, they build one on top of the other one. Then we have generative AI, which is like where probably we are now. And then we have AI agents. What AI agents are going to do, you're really going to move you to the right side of the figure. So you're going to start have conditional autonomy for systems. You're going to start having high autonomy. And maybe in 3 or 4 year times, probably some of the systems will get full autonomy. For example, the autonomous network concept. Now, what's my takeaway? I think AI agents will spark a new wave. And they're not here yet. Probably, as sort of guys said, probably next year is going to be the hot year for agents. And in some way, this wave will hit faster and harder than previous ones. And that's why a lot of the application vendors realize that and say, look, am I going to have a business in 3 or 4 years' time if these agents do all the work? Do I need all these user interfaces, for example, for users? Or I need more APIs and programmatic interfaces for agents to go and execute things on behalf of the users, right? Now, what has changed as well is executives. Right? This generation is more aware, more exposed to the new technologies. Going back to my background, we studied agents, of the telecom operators in the late 90s. There were 2 problems. People didn't trust the agents to do workflows because they said, I'm not going to trust an agent to do it in an autonomous way. And second thing, the systems were rule-based. Guess what? The brain has improved. You don't need a rule-based system. You have a very nice LLM. So that one problem has been solved. The trust problem is not yet solved, but it's more the next generation coming, even the employees are sort of open to accepting, all of the social media, the mobile phone, accepting the concept of someone else doing things for them, right? And they're more open. So I think that's changing now. That the ground is more fertile, if you like. But it goes back to quick wins. Don't miss that journey, because it's going to become harder and harder as this thing sort of kicks off and goes at speed. So try to pilot some of the ideas, especially OSS, BSS space is going to be huge transformation in that space, both for application vendors, for systems integrators that don't realize it so much. Some of them they do, like Salesforce and Microsoft, that's why they reacted so harshly. And start developing a strategy, right? Developing a strategy, you don't need to say everything in detail. Just look at your process inventory, which of things can be done in an agentic way, which things can be automated with generative AI, and start working on that strategy, because it's going to be the next 5-10 years, because this team is going to dominate, right? Okay, thanks for it.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Just for a moment there, when you said, why is this happening now? I thought you were going to say service providers have finally realized that if they treat their customers better, then they're going to make more money. But no, not yet. Maybe, yeah, it's a silly idea. Okay, so a lot to take in there, a lot of different views. So we'll just come to, I've got a lot of questions, but we'll come to the audience first. And with questions, if you can say who you are before you ask your question, please.
Hello, Francis Haysom from Appledore Research. I'm very interested in the use cases I'm hearing both in both sessions, but I'm very conscious that all of them are really about what I would term is the mechanization of what the telco does at the moment, be it fault analysis or customer experience or call agents. How much danger are we in that we kind of are backing ourselves into a cul-de-sac of using AI to mechanize what we do rather than AI to transform what we do? And a good example of that is, for example, if you look at the progress in terms of vision recognition using AI, is that early steps were about how we described a human being needing to interpret a photograph, but the real gains there came by actually really flipping the whole thing around and using AI to actually properly understand how it can determine visual information. So are we in danger of backing ourselves into a cul-de-sac, which is really just a mechanization cul-de-sac? And is there a bigger opportunity? How do we make that leap across what is probably a pretty fundamental change in the business?
Anybody want to jump in with a response?
I suppose, from my perspective, I don't think it's just about mechanisation. I think you're adding the ability to do things much better than you currently do them.
Graeme, sorry, could you lean forward just a little bit there? Thank you.
Yeah, so I don't think that is necessarily just mechanisation, which I agree feels a little bit mechanical. But it's an important evolutionary step on the journey. And I think it helps people get into it and understand how powerful this technology can be in changing the way we do things. So we definitely believe in evolution, and I don't think it is a rabbit hole or a backwater. You look at it and go, it's now better. Okay, so what's the next thing we can do?
I think probably I can answer the transformation side. I mean, there's a couple of things which are be hugely transformational, but obviously we need to wait for 2 or 3 years to happen, right? The first one is about process, really, and process automation, right? A lot of the existing applications and systems, right, you expect you to create the workflows or the best practice, let's say, processes into a business. When sort of agentic AI will come over, in a way the agents will discover your business and operate it in a more flexible and autonomic way. That will be game-changing when it happens. And hopefully we expect to see that from the big vendors, releasing some of these products, right, in the next year or two. The second transformation is obviously on the business side. It's not about the operations and how you can use, AI to improve your services, right? Because in a year or two, the customer may have their own personal agent, what's called Jarvis from Google or Operator from OpenAI, and try to find the best deals for them, right? Are you ready for it? Are you going to have your own agent responding to that customer agent and say, I can offer you broadband and this is sort of a deal you can get from me? So you need to prepare both on the operational side for what's coming, but also on the business and transact on AI services more and more, I would think, right?
Okay, thanks, Chris. Manish.
Thanks, Ray. I think that's a great question, and I'll break my thoughts into two parts. I think there's part A, which I think is probably where most of the discussion today is what's the low-hanging fruit with the existing set of models and capabilities. I am hinting things like large language models, etc. And that's why the discussion very quickly obviously moves into, hey, can I improve my customer service, customer engagements? Can I drive more automation, whether it's network troubleshooting, etc., where these already well-established, well-trained large language models lend themselves very well to realize those use cases. I think there is nothing wrong in that. We ought to do that, realize the productivity gains, etc. Part B of what you're touching on is, are we missing the opportunity to have AI to learn new things? And I think that's where I would say, not really, but we have to shift the discussion to what's happening in the academia. And if we go and look at what's happening in the world of academia, there's some very interesting things happening. Like, some of the work that I've been looking at from places like NYU and all coming in, where they're looking at, can you improve layer 1 performance? Can you improve channel state information, channel estimation, and what's the implication of that in terms of performance gains that you can have? Can you improve beam forming, beam management? This is all just in the very world of a wireless network, or where can we build and get the technology to learn newer capabilities and improve the network performance. I still think that cake is still in the oven. It's getting baked and it's getting ready. And I think between now and next couple of years, we're going to see more improvements coming out. There's some very interesting results. I mean, you probably might have seen, again, a few weeks back, I was just coming across the work that NTT, Docomo, Nokia, Qualcomm, etc. have done on a AI native air interface, right? And the performance gains that they have started to demonstrate. So just to summarize, I agree. I think that's a good point that, hey, are we just thinking too much here and now? No, I think there is work that's getting done. It's probably not ready yet for the prime time, and probably more needs to be done in there.
Okay, Raj.
I just have one point to add. I'll give an example. So we are breaking the schema and embedding it for the analytics engine into a vector DB, for example. Now, what that enables you to do is you have no dependency on GUIs or knowledgeable SQL query writers, right? You have all your analytics, network analytics data in the RAG system. Now, it's up to you as a sales and marketing, or, as a product manager or as a NOC user to shoot the query and get whatever best you can get out of that analytics database, right? So as per me, we are getting rid of GUIs and SQL query dependencies. Again, very technical example. Sorry about that. But I think it's a transformation thing. It's not a mechanization thing, because you're expanding the use of data and you are actually democratizing the data which you have in your systems. And that's what telcos need, as per me.
Okay. And Vess.
Yeah. So look, I mean, to me personally, to get to that next level of vision, right? I'm going to agree here with Manish and Chris and maybe expand on their point, but telcos really need to look at their data and break the data silos. Once we break the data silos and we can again start making decisions driven, whether we're starting from customer service towards the network or from the network towards customer service or any way, right? We need to be able to decompose requests. So the request is going to come in. We're going to have to figure out how to decompose it into what agents can help us. Sort of that rationalizing AI capability we've seen become hotter and hotter right now within the popular models like, ChatGPT Force, like you've seen the O1 preview where it sort of thinks through things. So we're going to have to get really good at that. And then we need to invest as we work on some of those first proof of concept things with our agents, whether again, customer service, whether troubleshooting, OSS based, etc. We need to think about almost having an AI API. Now, it's not obviously an API in the traditional sense, but by defining what things certain agents are good at, how data should be passed, what sort of RAGs they should have access to, to get technical. we can then start to, by decomposing a request, we can then start getting relevant answers coming from a very broad set of capabilities that would hopefully surprise us, right? So we may get a person saying, hey, I can't game. My latency is over 50 milliseconds. I'm getting fragged left and right. And that can actually drive ultimately to the AI saying, hey, you need to adjust QoS on nodes London 5, interface gigabit 4, right? So getting from one customer service request could possibly create an answer somewhere completely different. And I think those are the possibilities where we get surprised, hopefully in a positive way, by what we can achieve.
Okay, right. We have a question over here and then a question up there. So if you can say who you are.
Hi, I'm Karina from SDL Partners. And so my question is that generative AI and AI uses so much energy, but in the previous session, in this session, there are energy saving kind of capabilities that are being launched. And the thing I'm interested in is, can AI ever be sustainable? We're seeing the data where energy consumption is going up, but is there going to be an inflection point? Kind of what does the future look like for that? Thanks.
If we can get a couple of quick responses on this, because I've also just noticed the time as well.
All right. I'll just share a couple of points. I mean, I think it's a great question again. AI and energy consumption go hand in hand. There are a couple of things that are very much, I would say, good, interesting proof points that are developing. First of all, from an infrastructure perspective, liquid cooling. That's coming, that's here and now almost, right? I mean, we're doing a lot of work in that. Absolutely essential to, again, improve the PUE for your data centers. So I think that's very, very critical. Second thing I would just say, is there's a optimal way probably for the industry to eventually arrive at an optimal point in terms of how we build the infrastructure and the models. And what I'm trying to get to is, I really don't believe that there is a future out there where everybody is going to be building a lot of LLM kind of models. I mean, I heard a lot of telcos talking about telco-specific LLMs. Yeah, interesting idea. You can do some fine-tuning, et cetera. That's fine. But you got to take a foundation model and fine-tune that with your data. That makes sense. But trying to build a model from scratch, that's heavy lift. And the implication of that from an energy standpoint is, if you're going to leverage a lot of the existing set of models, then again, there is an energy implication, because the discussion on the inferencing side is then completely different. So where I'm just getting it is how many models the world's going to build is also going to determine an energy outcome of it.
Okay, Vess, and then we'll come to the question up here.
Yeah, so, I mean, look, I think overall, and IBM is super bullish on small models. So I think the future in many ways is the small models. Big models are powerful. They're very powerful. Are they they're not too powerful, but are they too powerful for purpose, right? And cost today already determines that. Obviously, querying a larger and larger model costs more and more money. But if you look at the cost of a small model, it can actually have fewer hallucinations for your purposes. It's easier to train and much cheaper to train. And obviously generating tokens, aka responses, is much, much cheaper. So I think cost and energy are going to be very much hand in hand. I also agree building your own models in most cases is a folly, and you should pick the best foundational models available out there and fine-tune them yourself and use RAG as heavy as you can. So,
okay, thanks.
Good morning, everyone. So my question is,
if you could just say for the few people who may not know who you are now.
You can look me up on ChatGPT. Sorry, I'm Neil McRae. I just wondered, a whole lot of scenarios, which good or bad, but for me, AI is a bit of a game of inches. There's no big bang here. Anyone who thinks, we're going to wake up tomorrow, AI's cured world hunger, absolutely no way. So my question to the panel is how does a telco know who to work with to get the most of those inches?
Okay, yeah, who to work with. This has already been raised a couple of times. It's going to be raised again tomorrow at the Great Telco Debate. But let's go along the panel here, maybe starting with Chris.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously there's some players which start to dominate this AI area, I would say, especially if you look at the likes of Microsoft in particular, right? So in a way, what they're trying to do, in my view, is like they try to sort of take over from the startups, because there's a lot of startups out there trying things. But they will say, look, we'll develop all the frameworks, the agentic frameworks. We'll give you access to some of the best foundation models. So in some way, some of these people, they try to corner the market. The application vendors as well, they got a bit worried, as I said earlier, because the agentic user experience and all of that moves them a bit away from the application type of development. So, and also systems integrators, they need to change their approach, right? Look to help you out to make more a transition to agentic. And I would say probably you have to work with all of them and pick the leaders that start to invest more and dominate this specific segment as the game develops, right? And it's not set right now. People are just in a flux. Right?
Chris, if I may be so bold, I could ask, how would I buy a car? And you could say the same answer. I mean, I think it's kind of, this is a challenge, and I actually think our industry is miles behind other industries in this space because they're going out and doing it. But on reflection, part of that is because what we do is life critical. So you don't want to get your AI agent in and say, hey, I'm just going to turn this off, and it's the thing powering the blood transfusion service. And I've seen a real example of something AI go bad like that. So I kind of, for me, in the discussions around AI, it's too generic. How do we get into the kind of gory details? Because I think there's an industry out there who are desperate to learn, but don't know how to learn. And the question was a test because I kind of expected the answer.
Well, let's see what the others have to say.
Yeah.
Now that you
they were going to say the same thing. Or they're going to say, hey, buy Ericsson.
Well, let's see what Ericsson says.
No, I'm not going to say that. If as a telco you need a simple enterprise virtual assistant to write MOPs for you, you can do it yourself or with an SA vendor. If you need expertise into analytics or into OSS, BSS or RAN, then you go on to the vendors like Ericsson, Nokia's and all. The reason for that is we know our data. We know our data catalogs, where the schema is. You can develop on your own, but then say goodbye to TCO. So no, I'll not say buy everything from us. Yeah.
But do you really know the data? Sorry, because you know the data from your side. But what you don't know is the data from the customer side. So how do you join those things? So, if I just said, hey, just do what Ericsson or Nokia or Juniper or whoever says, I'll get this sort of flavor. But for me, that's not enough. And again, I've tried this. It's not enough. So, and again, I hear this word data. It's a very vague word. How do we be specific? What kind of data? What's the? And actually, we mentioned inference. So on the inferencing side, in order to augment this data that we've got, who needs to do what type of inferencing and where?
Manish,
hey, can I say buy it from Dell? All right.
You can, but lunch is coming
up. Put that aside. Just
there's a purchase order on the way.
But I think the way I would suggest anyone should approach this would be start with the business case and what's the business outcome you're after. If you're after, obviously, I mean, there's no one thing, right? I mean, you look at what the technology is capable of. What's the business outcome I'm trying to get to? Start there. And so if the business outcome is do I feel is the technology ready to improve my customer service, customer experience? Okay, great. What does that mean? How am I going to measure that? And once you arrive at that, the second thing in the world of AI is obviously going to be data. What data do you have and where is that data? And how good the quality of that data is. And from therein, you start to build who are the right set of partners or partner that you bring into realizing that use case. And I would just say one last thing. I think we should not draw this conclusion of turn the network off and stop a blood transfusion. I think that's I think that's putting too much fear into what the technology already is capable of. We don't have to get to that point. There are safeguards that the technology can definitely put in that don't turn things off beyond a certain threshold or level. So we don't have to worry too much about that kind of an outcome. And we should think about it. It's a good debate to have. Yeah. We should definitely think about it, but put the safeguards in there. But I think there are definitely things to be had here and now. And I would say start with the use case, data, and then who can help and partner with you to realize that.
Okay. Graeme?
Yeah, look, I think customers have to take ownership of the problems they're trying to solve, fundamentally, which is what you're saying. You've got to know what problem you're trying to solve. You might not quite know how to solve it. But if you know what problem you're trying to solve, you also know the risks of solving it in a bad way, like turning something off. So you can't delegate your accountability for the problem solution and the outcomes that might emerge from the wrong deployment or a bad deployment of AI. It's exactly the same as any other technology. So I think you just have to own the problem that you're trying to solve. And if you own the problem, you sort of know what some of the risks are. And then if you do turn the thing off, it's kind of your fault. That was just a dumb decision because you gave it to somebody else to solve, which was probably stupid to do. But that's true now. That's true before AI. That's true of any solution that you deploy.
Yeah, sorry, and maybe I used a too extreme method. My concern is more about the kind of real-time nature of what we do, generically.
But it's real-time today, so I don't think it's any different. I don't think it's a different
but you're right, but one might argue that, so we're about to go up to the Christmas period, the most reliable time in telecommunications. Why is that? Because all the humans go home.
It's also change freezes in the network.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So on that basis, how would you use AI to have that all year round?
Okay, hold that thought.
Why don't we do that?
We're just going to come to Vess, and then we need to finish the session. But we do have lunch coming up where these conversations can be had in the next room as well. So
yeah, so I'm going to push back a little bit on your original statement that this is a game of inches. And I wasn't in this room when this happened. This was a little bit before my time. But I think we are in a situation similar to when service providers went from 2G to 3G. I mean, you can say it's a game of inches, but that was a very transformational time when IP applications suddenly became available on your phone. So we're going from to the model that I think Chris was showing earlier, machine assisted, right? Now we're going into like driving very quickly towards machine driven. And this is a transformational time. To your point about AIs and reliability, I think we're setting a very high standard for reliability. AIs to be accepted in production are going to be a lot better than junior employees. I think they're going to be better than senior employees by the time we trust them to do what they do. Think about cars. Right? Today, a single car accident by a Tesla or another Waymo is reported widely in the news. In the meantime, people are having fender benders left, right, and center, and no one blinks an eye. So I think the same thing is going to happen with AIs. They will be very heavily scrutinized, and they won't go into production until we're pretty damn sure that they're good enough. So from that perspective, I think the one thing that's kind of missing today that we can do better is what I'm calling right now, maybe I'm coining the term best practices gap. We have skills gap, and as we're building out these capabilities, again, this is that transformation point. We're moving from 2G, SMSs, slightly rich content. Now we're going to full IP connectivity to your pocket computer. And we are now about to develop this whole new set of best practices that we had to do as an industry at that time. So it's a very exciting time, and I think it's miles and not inches right now.
Okay, thank you. Can I just point out, this is what this kind of event is about, where we turn to the audience, get these kind of questions, get these kind of points, have a load of different views, and this is why we always like to have Neil in the audience, because there's never any agreement, but that's what moves the conversation
forward. There's lots of agreement.
A great telco debate.
That's right.
Something to write about.
Precursors to the great telco debate. So listen, we do have to call time on this session here because we do have one more thing before lunch where we're going to be talking pretty much about something that we haven't really covered so far very much this morning, and that's regulation. So if you could give a round of applause to our panel.
you.